Test, test.
Okay, I'm going to do something, okay?
Hang on. I got audio.
Huh?
I got audio.
You do?
Yes.
Okay, we're just waiting for a few other people, and while they're taking breakfast, we can go ahead and start. Good morning once again. If you can take your seats, we can go ahead and get started with the opening ceremony. Okay, good morning once again. Provost Jamison, Provost Jacobs, distinguished guests from the University of Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon University, faculty, colleagues, staff, and students. On behalf of Robert Morris University, and more specifically, the Research and Grants Administration, thank you for participating in RMU's first Research and Grants Expo. I'm hopeful that through the various activities planned for today, participants will be able to hear from our panelists, view the research work carried out by our faculty colleagues, and discuss research and grant opportunities with our grant writers. The idea of a research expo was incepted a little over a year ago with the objective of sharing research beyond our offices and, if possible, establishing some type of collaboration. And today, with the participation and support from faculty colleagues, panelists, moderator, keynote speaker, advisory council members, and grant writers, we are able to line up a day full of activities related to research and grants. This morning, our program begins with welcome remarks from Provost Jamison, followed by research and grants updates from Vice Provost and Senior Vice Provost Jacobs, Vice President and Senior Vice Provost Jacobs. At 9:15, we will have a panel discussion on the topic Research First or Grant First, the Dilemma. At 10:30, we will start our poster exhibition where 39 RMU researchers will showcase their research work. This will be followed by lunch and keynote addresses at 12. And finally, beginning at 1:45, there will be sessions with grant writers. Before I end my opening remarks, I would like to acknowledge the support of the Research and Grants Awareness Advisory Council members, Dr. Susma Mishra, Ergin Erdem, Prasad Vemala, Suzanne Cardon Edgren, and John McCarthy for their assistance towards the success of this event. I would also like to thank our student volunteers. At this time, I would like to invite Provost Jamison to say a few words, followed by updates from Vice President and Senior Vice Provost Jacobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Sushil. As the Chief Academic Officer of the institution, it's my pleasure to support the faculty in all aspects of faculty life, in their teaching, in their research and scholarship, and in the service that they perform. Robert Morris has always been known as a premier teaching institution, but as we've matured as a university, I think we've taken our place now as an increasingly stronger research institution, providing opportunities for the faculty to share their research with colleagues in their disciplines and really across the nation. And I'm honored to be among the faculty here today who are presenting the research. I had a preview of the poster session back here. It's going to be an extraordinary event, 39 different posters representing faculty research that I think are extraordinary. They're cross-disciplinary, they're interdisciplinary, and they're disciplinary as well. And it's an extraordinary outpouring. We have over 120 students and 50 faculty who will be part of this day at some point, and I'm sure it'll be a very busy time back there with the poster session and for the panels. This venue provides a tremendous opportunity for the faculty, administration, and students to see the maturity we've reached, the point we've reached in terms of research or portfolios at Robert Morris University. This is that time of year when the provost reviews faculty promotion dossiers. And as it happens, I've been doing that over the last 4 or 5 days, and there are a lot of people applying for promotion. And what I've been struck with as I've reviewed those is the exceptional research records that many of our faculty have now added to their strong teaching portfolios. We have over 35 presenters today from all 5 of RMU's schools, from the library, from the Office of Academic Affairs. And when you go back to see the poster session, you will notice that there's a star on some, all posters are equal, but some are more equal than others. There's a star on some of the posters that represent the fact that those were grants driven. And that's, I think, an important element of what we're doing, that many more of our faculty are able to obtain research grants to support their research. And I want to really pay a great deal of, a great word of thanks to the office that Sushil heads up under the direction of Dr. Jacobs, to the faculty committee he just named that participated in the planning of this event. This is the first. My guess is as we go forward, this will become an even broader perspective on research at RMU and more speakers. I'm particularly honored this morning, and Phil Harold, I think, will do a more fulsome introduction, I think, of our panelists in just a moment. But Professor Achim and Professor Joshi are here today from CMU and Pitt, and I am really grateful that you came over to be with us today. We feel like, I was asked by the president, so what are we doing with CMU and Pitt as he came to town? Because obviously your research reputation is strong. And I was able to put together a strong list of interactions with our faculty and our colleagues at CMU and Pitt, and we're proud to have that association. They'll be joined on the panel, as you'll hear in a moment, by two of our university professors. That's our highest rank. It's an earned rank at Robert Morris University. It's not an honorific. Fred Kohun and Jill Maher are on the panel as well. So 4 distinguished researchers are going to address us first of all. And then later on, as Sushil said, we have a keynote address and much chance today then to share ideas and share thoughts about future research directions, because I think that's going to be one of the products of today. Is we hear about the research excitement at Robert Morris, we hear about the scholarly attainments, we begin to share ideas about next year's presentation when we'll have 80 posters instead of 40, right? And we will have many more presentations. So I'm really grateful to be a part of this, to be able to support you in what you do. And again, thanks to Sushil and to the faculty committee and to Dr. Jacobs. And I think you want to make some remarks now. I'd like to introduce Vice President and Senior Vice Provost Derya Jacobs. Derya.
First of all, I want to welcome all of you to today's activities, and I want to thank you for participating. As Provost Jamison mentioned, this has been a dream for us. We have been talking about it, believe it or not, for about 5 years. So if it wasn't for Sushil, I don't know who could have made it happen. And of course, it wasn't only him. All of you in this room has participated in it. And you took the time to put your posters for the research, and amazing, amazing topics. Great research is being done at Robert Morris University. I want to talk a little bit about involvement of our university's grant activities. I don't know if those of you who have been here for maybe about 10 years, you will know maybe we hardly had any grant activities here at our university. Just to give you a snapshot of what's happening in the last few years. Our grant activity in dollars has increased from $100,000 to over $1 million per year in the last 5 years. And just this year, this academic year, 2015-2016, we had 22 proposals submitted, and 30 faculty members participated in grant writing. And totaling all submissions, $7.5 million. And the academic year is not over, as you all know, right? And I know there are a number of proposals that are being worked out as we speak. And these grant proposals are not just individual proposals either. What impresses me the most is that faculty members' ability and the connections that they have. You collaborate with other organizations, other colleges, other companies, and there are proposals where there are 40 to 50 participants in it. And these projects, these grant proposals, are multi-year proposals. Obviously, those of you who have experienced the pleasure of having grant dollars, it provides you flexibility. You are able to support students, you are able to support your research in a better way. So kudos to all of you. But that doesn't mean, as Provost Jamison mentioned, if a research doesn't have grants, it is not valued. We value that research. In some disciplines, there are not grant opportunities. So we cannot say those research, those projects are not as valuable as those where we are able to get grants. So I want to recognize everybody's research at this university and in this room. If it wasn't for the research, I don't think we will be having this event today. Now, one thing that, couple things I want to mention. As part of making the research and grants activity more attractive and more accessible, Sushil has worked with 4 different committees. And I want to thank those committees. I know you have been all very active. That includes Promotion and Marketing Committee, Communications Committee, Grant Policies and Procedures Committee, and we just talked about Research and Grants Awareness Committee, who participated in planning for this event. Also, our faculty committees recommended that we should have a newsletter. So I am pleased to let you know that we launched that in fall 2015. Similarly, we are also updating, thanks to our staff and Sushil, website. So if you have any more ideas how we can enhance our website for your research activities or grant activities, please let us know, because this is the time to share that information. Now, I want to take a few minutes to thank the organizers. I want to start with our students. You will see them around. They are Lauren Murray, Linda Zisik, Kaylin Harmon, Khalid Alkamash, Mohammed Al-Shazer, Hamam Kadraye. Lastly, I want to thank Sushil Acharya for pulling this off. Sushil, thank you so much for making this happen. And also Lisa Nauman, who is outside. You all know we are office of 2. So really, it's amazing what you have accomplished, Sushil.
Thank you, Provost Jamison, and Vice President and Senior Vice Provost Jacobs, for your kind words. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we will take maybe a 15 minutes break. If some of you need to hang your posters, feel free to do so now. At 9:15, we will start our panel discussion. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. If you can take your seats, we can start the second part of our program today. So for the next hour, we will have a panel discussion on the topic, Research First or Grant First, the Dilemma. Thank you all for being here. Thank you especially to our students. Okay, hopefully you'll understand a little bit more about research and grants, and maybe this will generate some interest in your areas. So what we'll do is that we have 4 panelists, and we also have a moderator for this panel discussion. I will introduce the panelists, and as I read out the introduction of these panelists, I would like to request the panelists to come and take your seats. I will then introduce the moderator, and then I will give the floor to the moderator to lead the panel discussion. He will talk about the ground rules, how he expects to conduct this panel discussion. First of all, I'd like to welcome Dr. Fred Kohun. Dr. Fred Kohun is a university professor of computer and information systems at Robert Morris University. He has more than 39 years of experience as a professor and academic administrator, department head, associate dean, dean, and associate provost. He was the founding director of RMU's doctoral program in information systems and communication. At Robert Morris University, he led the design and implementation of 8 technology-based academic programs, as well as the attainment of ABET CAC accreditation. He is known both nationally and internationally for his numerous publications and presentations in economics, health informatics, decision support, technological impact, and culture. Currently, he is active internationally as an accreditation evaluator and team leader, having participated in more than 22 accreditation visits. In 2007, he was named the International Computer Educator of the Year by the International Association of Computer Information Systems. In 2012, he received the honor of an endowed doctoral scholarship fund under his name. Welcome, Dr. Kohun. Let's give a round of applause for him. Next, I'd like to welcome Dr. Catalina Achim. Dr. Catalina Achim is a professor at Carnegie Mellon University, Department of Chemistry. She was a postdoctoral fellow at Harvard University. She is an associate director of the Center for Nucleic Acids Science and Technology at CMU. She is the founder and director of DNA Zone, the outreach program of the Center for Nucleic Acid Science and Technology at CMU. She was the NSF program director for the Division of Chemistry from 2013 to 2015. She is the recipient of an NSF Career Award. She is an Elite Fellow. Elite at Drexel is a leadership development program for senior women faculty in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and related disciplines. She is a recipient of Julius Ashkin Teaching Award, Mellon College of Science, Carnegie Mellon University. She has received a number of awards, including ACS Progress, Dreyfus Lectureship Award, Camille Dreyfus Teacher Scholar Award. She also received a Sloan Research Fellowship. Welcome, Dr. Achim. Next, we have Dr. James Joshi. Dr. James Joshi is a professor of School of Information Sciences at the University of Pittsburgh. He is a co-founder and director of Laboratory of Education and Research on Security Assured Information Systems, which has been designated a Center of Academic Excellence in Information Assurance Education, jointly by the National Security Agency and Department of Homeland Security. He is also the director of National Science Foundation Scholarship for Service Program. He currently is the chair of School of Information Sciences Council at the University of Pittsburgh. His research interests span various areas within information security and privacy, advanced access control and trust management in distributed environments, network security, security and privacy in cloud computing, and social networks. He has published over 120 articles in journals, conferences, and as book chapters, and has served as program chair, general chair, and steering committee member or chair of several international conferences and workshops. His research and educational efforts have been supported by grants from the National Science Foundation, NSA, DHS, NIST, Cisco, and so on. He's a recipient of the NSF Career Award. He's also a senior member of IEEE and ACM, and a recipient of Society of Information Reuse and Integration Fellowship. Welcome, Dr. Joshi. And finally, we have Dr. Jill Maher. Dr. Jill Maher is a university professor of marketing in RMU School of Business. She obtained her PhD in marketing from Kent State University. Her primary research interests examine the impact of branding and packaging of children's food products on consumer information processing. She has conducted and published consumer-oriented research in the Journal of Advertising Research, the Journal of Advertising, the Journal of Current Issues and Research in Advertising, the British Food Journal, the Journal of Nonprofit Management and Leadership, the Journal of the Advancement of Marketing Education, Food Policy, and the Journal of Marketing Management. Dr. Maher is the advisor to a very successful RMU collegiate chapter of the American Marketing Association. She is also a recipient of RMU's President's Award for Distinguished Service. Welcome, Dr. Maher. Our moderator for today's panel discussion is Dr. Philip Harold. Dr. Philip Harold is a professor of political science and associate dean of RMU School of Education and Social Sciences. He's a Fulbright scholar and has spent time researching in Germany. He obtained his PhD in politics from the Catholic University of America. His area of expertise is modern political theory and American politics. He's also a co-director of RMU's honors program. And for the students in this room, please be notified that there is an honors undergrad research conference that will take place on April 22nd. So if you are interested, please go ahead and submit or register for this program. Dr. Harold has organized and moderated a number of panel discussions, most recent being a panel discussion on mass shootings in America. So without delaying further, I'm going to give the floor over to Dr. Philip Harold, and he will explain the ground rules of the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Acharya, for organizing this. I wanted to have some low background music and a video montage when he was doing the introductions, but he said it wasn't in the budget. It's wonderful to see all of you here, and this is also being streamed. It's wonderful to be with such a distinguished panel and to hear their thoughts on doing research and getting grants. So basically, we have a series of questions we're going to have the panelists respond to, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So we can go ahead and delve right in. The first question is, how has research impacted your professional development, career, and teaching? In addition, what was gratifying or rewarding for you in carrying out your research? Dr. Maher.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I want to be pretty candid in my first response to that question. At a research institution or a blended institution like RMU, where we look at teaching and research, research is necessary for promotion and merit. So my first response is that, well, if you want to go through the ranks of assistant to associate to full professor to university professor, as we have here, research is a must. And if you want to make more money, like everybody does when working, you need to do research. So that's a very candid response, and I think it would be, if we all pretended that didn't exist, that wouldn't be the right thing to do. But beyond that, in my doctoral training in the late 90s, I just made myself older than I am, in the late 90s, I was trained to make sure that I added to my field of study and the knowledge in my field of study to my discipline. It was ingrained in me that that is an obligation, that is a duty of a professor or an individual with a PhD. So for me personally, research is part of my DNA. It's what I do when people ask me what I do for a living. I'm very clear about the fact that I'm a professor, which means I am a teacher and a researcher. I'm not just a teacher, even though for the individuals in the back of the room there, teaching is very important to me. But certainly the research aspect is very important too and very gratifying. So adding to the body of knowledge is an obligation, I feel, as people with our credentials, that it's a rewarding experience, but yet it is a duty and an obligation for our fields of study to add to the literature. I incorporate research into my classrooms. I think that the people sitting in the back of the room, there's maybe 10 or 11 of them back there, would say that as well. Gino, I'll pick on you. What is my research about? Food and kids. That's pretty good. Actually, it's about food marketing, food packaging of children's food products. So they all know pretty well what my teaching or my research interests are. I incorporate them into the classroom. My research is in the area of consumer behavior. I teach consumer behavior. I'm a consumer. My students are consumers, so it's easy for me to do that. I would say on a weekly basis, something about my research comes up and we discuss it in class. So my teaching and my research are very reflective of each other. For what I believe is the most rewarding, I think that's the last part of the question, I think since our work goes under peer review, and I know everyone in the room knows what that means, especially the students in the back, what is most gratifying to me is that my peers, 2 or 3 of them who work in a similar field as me, review my work and choose whether or not, decide whether or not it's worthy of publication and if it's interesting for a particular readership. So for me to know that peers of mine see my work as beneficial to readers and interesting to readers, and we'll talk a little bit about relevance in a little bit, that's what's most gratifying to me. It's not so much seeing the work in print, it's just knowing that someone thought it was good, and those people are peers. So that's what's most rewarding for me.
Check. Should I go? Well, good morning. Thank you, Dr. Acharya and Dr. Harold, for organizing this panel and inviting me. It's a really great pleasure to be here. Well, coming to the question, I think research indeed has played the most significant role in my career, and it goes all the way back to my days as a PhD student. I was very fortunate to have a very good foundation. I can think of 3 points to relate to. The first one is I had, which is obvious one, I had tremendous, a number of opportunities to work with my advisor as well as many senior, very successful researchers to work on research papers. And secondly, as a senior PhD student, I had many opportunities to mentor as well as collaborate with junior PhD students. So these 2 factors really helped me create the momentum and create a rate of productivity that continued after my graduation as a PhD student into several years of my faculty career. And the third point is, as a PhD student, I had many opportunities to work on grants. I must have worked on at least 4 or 5 NSF grants, some of which I prepared initial drafts all by myself and worked with my advisor to submit. And fortunately, 2 of them were funded before my graduation, which was very good for me. And it really helped me learn about the grant writing skills. And so with these 3 activities, I was able to create the momentum that made me very comfortable to start the faculty career. I didn't have to worry about research problems to focus on. I had several of them that I could continue working on. I didn't have to spend time learning the grant writing skills, which I saw many of my colleagues when they begin the faculty career struggle with a little bit, at least for a year or 2. So this also helped me secure my NSF Career Award within 2-3 years period, and in first attempt, which was very good for me. And also, because of the momentum that I had extra time to focus on curriculum development, establishing the center. We established the center within 2 years of my faculty career. I was able to focus on organizing research workshops and conferences, and all these packaged together, I think, gave me big leverage to go out for early promotion and tenure. So in a way, research momentum that I was able to create during my PhD studies itself helped me a lot in the faculty career. So with regards to what is, and coming to the teaching part, I think in many of the courses, I try to incorporate my research projects as class projects, as sometimes I have several students join me for independent study to do research and publish. And so it really attracted some highly motivated students pursuing master's degree to come to me and talk about research. What is gratifying and rewarding, I think when you see your research work published and make real world impact and see the citations grow, it really is deeply satisfying. So some of my work was cited by industry to make case for why certain approaches are being pursued by them. Some work was cited by standardization efforts to argue about why standards for certain models were needed. And more recently, our work in privacy in social network, which is a very relevant topic, got public attention, and I had to go for interviews. And these exposure really give deep satisfaction. And most recently, seeing your PhD students go out and become a faculty member in good institutions or researchers in big companies like Google, IBM, Cisco, Facebook, it's really rewarding feeling that you get. So I think research really have been the central, played the central role in my career development. Thanks.
I have a distinctly different perspective on this. As part of my adolescence that's been perpetuated, I went straight from college into 3 PhD programs in 3 different areas. So that kind of gave me an interesting vantage point. But personally, there's good news and bad news with all this research stuff. The good news is that I'm never bored. Always find something to study. And as a good case point, there's recent research that shows success is directly correlated with sociometric criteria, like how close you sit to the front. The people who sit to the front tend to do much better in the real world. So I study everything. The other good news is because I'm always studying everything and looking at things, I'm very much interested in ethnographic cultural perspectives, including information systems, is that it prevents the onset of early stage Alzheimer's, because now I'm developing all these weird synapses and relationships. So to me, it's a very good thing. But the bad news is, again, on the counter side, is I'm always studying everything. I never don't try to analyze something. But for me, I'm very fortunate because I get to work with a lot of cool people here. When I did my first reluctant administrative tour of duty as department head, Robert Morris was going through a change. And so I initiated a research venue with our faculty that we started working collaboratively. And I knew if we made it fun, it would be very successful. And so we got a lot of cool things out there, and we did very well. So collaboration is one of the things that really gets me fired up. Virtually all innovation, and I'm going to talk about invention, but innovation is collaborative. So you need to exercise your ideas with others. The other thing, and the others have mentioned this, but peer recognition is kind of important. I've been very blessed in the sense of having to develop and grow with a doctoral program and work with a lot of my doctoral students and watch their careers go, to have a number of best papers and watch them take off on this. And that is so exciting to see that happening. But the most important thing to me is this, the idea of interacting ideas, this cross-disciplinary ideas. Virtually 90% of all Nobel Prize winners have developed their research in a cross area, something that they did not get their degree in, by talking and interacting with other individuals. So that's what's exciting to me. But it made me a better teacher, and I have a number of my former students in here, and they know I'm into culture, they know I'm into decision making and trying to assess things. But it's an ongoing process, so I try to bring it back into my classroom. But the big thing is that when you talk about research, it really enhances the way you validate something, whether something has credibility or not. All of us have opinions, but when we get into this research mode, and I instill it particularly with my students or with when I'm reviewing someone, the question is, how credible is what I'm doing? If somebody, will they be able to use this? Will it add something, or is this something that's really insignificant nuisance? But I've spent a lot of time just thinking about this, but I get an adrenaline rush when I start working with ideas and trying to formulate solutions. So research is very important in all environments, whether you're a Research One institution or a teacher scholar model institution such as this one.
Great, thank you very much. We can move on to the next question, which is this. Many consider applying for grants the next logical step in research. In your view, should grant opportunities drive research or research drive grant applications? We'll start with Dr. Achim.
Hi, I'm delighted to be here getting to know my neighbors. I want to relate to the answers to the previous question that my colleagues have given, and I fully subscribe to the variety of answers they have given. My take-home lesson is that research speaks to one if you have personal satisfaction and external validation. And it's very important to know what makes you personally satisfied and how much of that external validation one needs. When it comes to taking that further and enabling your research, making the impact of those personal conditions bigger, it depends on the resources you have. So the degree of satisfaction you have in research correlates to some extent to the resources you have. And some of the resources are given to you based on the level of accomplishments, what is right, and some of them you can increase by your personal efforts. So I see those two. I think that it's maybe not productive for everyone to be involved in solving, the chicken and the egg problem, which one is first, but taking a very productive, pragmatic approach of, applying for research grants and doing concomitantly your research. Finding the right balance such that you are successful, and by success again in research, it means both the ways others see you and the way you perceive your work is important. So speaking in more specific terms about which one should be first, also at the beginning of one's academic career, you are given resources by a university. If you go to industry, you're given resources associated with a lab or with a part of the company in which you work. It is important to establish yourself, to prove that you can do outside the support of after you have lost, quote unquote, a significant part of the support your advisor, other than in feedback, as it has been mentioned, what can you do on your own 2 feet? So I think that learning that you stand on your own, that what you have learned and both the knowledge and the skills, it's very important. And setting plans. So what I find really interesting about writing research grants is the fact that it forces you to consider very critical your plan for achieving those lofty research goals you have. It forces you to be able to communicate those plans to others. And you know very well, we all may aspire to buy the next big house, to get the next big vacation, to get through college. When you start to do that, you are going to have a curriculum on which year after year you'll mark credits that you have achieved. There is nothing different in principle from writing a grant. You speak about specific aims and you try to make those worthwhile of an investment of other people in your research. And you also try to communicate to them what are the measurables. How will success be addressed, not only in your personal view, but in the view of the community? So I see, again, those as going hand in hand, and I think it is about finding the right balance into how much of your personal effort, which is limited, we all wish, we could clone ourselves, or at least I do, for doing other things in your life, but that is not yet possible. So where do you set that balance, and how does that advance your career's aspiration, career goals, and personal aspiration? I would be glad to speak in more specific terms if you have questions about that.
So in assessing the question of does the grant drive the research or does the research drive the grant, first let me say that I don't believe that a grant is always the next logical step in research. I think that there are many researchers out there that have had very prolific careers, very successful careers as researchers who have never pursued a grant application. So I don't think it's a must. I want to say that first. I think what drives research is passion and curiosity. That's what drives research. So without the passion, without the curious mind, then I don't think there's really a purpose in the research, and certainly there's no motivation behind the research. So no grant can motivate research like your own passion for research can, and your own curiosity. But in examining that question, I think it can be either, and I've seen it go both ways. For me personally, my experience has been that my research drives the grant application. I know what I want to research. I look for grants that fund that type of research. But what I found in doing that is when I come across grant opportunities that are not maybe necessarily right in line with what I'm doing, I often think to myself, oh, that's a great idea. I wish I was doing that research. So sometimes after you go through the application process for your own research, you have that mental note in the back of your head that says, there's other research out there that'd be really interesting that I'd like to engage in because I saw it in a grant opportunity. So I think it goes both ways. I mean, there can be grants that drive research, and there can be research that drives grants. So the real value in looking at grant opportunities before developing a proposal is there. I mean, going out, going through the NSF or whatever it is, and looking for what type of research projects they're funding, that's one way to go about it, is to look at what is available and then design your proposal in line with that grant opportunity. But my experience has been that my research drives what I'm doing. I mean, my research started on a soccer field, to be quite honest with you, a youth soccer field. The students in the back have heard this. I was curious about why people were bringing fruit roll-ups in as the halftime snack instead of cut up oranges. And I wanted to know, do people really believe that's a substitute for fruit for kids? So that's where my research started, is in my own personal life with my children and the types of foods that are on the market today. So I have a passion for that research. I'm interested in it from a personal perspective. I'm interested in it for my children. I'm interested in it for the field of marketing, and the way that we're packaging products and how that leads to childhood obesity issues. So certainly there's a concern for society at large. I look for grants to fund that type of research. Whether successful or not is a different story, but that's the type of work I do, and that's the approach that I've taken, but I certainly have seen it go both ways, and I think there's value in both ways.
Well, first of all, I would like to strongly agree with Jill that passion should actually drive research, but we do have resource constraints and so on, so we do need to worry about grants. So when it comes to this question, I typically subscribe to the mainstream thinking that research actually drives grants, because at least from an individual's perspective, if we are going after some grants, our research profile credentials are evaluated as part of the proposal itself. And the grant, the agency providing the funds needs to be sure that we are able to carry out the proposed tasks. And almost all the grants that I have applied to have that kind of design, that you have to demonstrate that you have done, you have the research credentials to carry out the proposed task. And in many cases, you need to also show some preliminary results to convince that the proposed task can be finished. So in a way, from individual's perspective, it is really research that probably brings the grants more effectively. But at the same time, the other direction is also important, especially if you look from the research community perspective or from the perspective of an institution or an agency with money to support research. You can actually think of these entities creating grants to push or drive the research in a particular direction. So if we look at NSF, when we see buzzwords like cloud computing, big data, IoT, and very few have done actual research in these areas, so they create special programs to try to support the research community to move into that direction. So grants pushing the research is, I think, more an institutional perspective and should be emphasized, not from the individual's perspective, but from the institution's perspective. But at the same time, even if you have those grants created, the people who get awarded are the ones who have strong research credentials. So if you come back to individual's perspective, it is still your research credentials that will help you bring the grants. And I think NSF has several programs that typically also try to support new endeavors. I think NSF Eager Grant is one opportunity that tries to emphasize supporting very fresh, new ideas, risky ideas, where people might not have done preliminary results. And similarly, I think many institutions have some seed funding mechanisms. At least I know that we have at Pitt. It's called Central Research Development Funds, and typically it's targeted towards supporting new faculty members to initiate new lines of work. So I think that's examples of the grants created to push the research. So my take on this is research driving grants is more individual perspective, and institutional perspective would be to create grants to push research in a new direction.
Great, thank you. So the next question is for Fred. In a teaching school such as ours, how does one prioritize between research and grant writing? What makes a strong application for academic positions? Is it a good publication record or grant writing? And does this depend on where you work in the university's strategic plan?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question in the sense that Robert Morris succumbs to the teacher-scholar model, and research is part of all of our DNA. That's what we're taught to do. From my perspective, to be very candid and brash, to quote Jill on this, I think starting out and moving through the system right here, it really depends on what where your passion lies. For me, it was about research, doing a variety of research to finding out what really is a hot area that people respond to, where you can build a research agenda, versus to take off and do something because you have to do it and it ceases to be fun. Then it becomes quite tedious overall. I'll give you an example that one of my areas of super interest is culture in decision making, and particularly applying Geert Hofstede's work. And I've gotten a phenomenal amount of response, particularly in Europe and Australia, for some of the things that I have written. Primarily because my international conferences, I noticed over the years there was a shift. People are talking about the same problems, the same issues, and that wasn't the case. They were always different. Then I also realized that there was a correlation with academic accreditation of professional programs. They went worldwide, AACSB, ABET. And with that, I had the idea that maybe we're diminishing localized, cultural-based decision-making for a standardization. So we view data in exactly the same way. We solve problems in the same way. So we've gone into a pro-cyclical process instead of counter-cyclical overall. Well, I started doing a series of papers, got phenomenal buzz and citations on this. So I was called on 2 separate occasions to go to speak to the European Union Commission on Education. And I was funded big time on the basis of my research. The grants came because of my research. It wasn't that I was looking for competitive grants on this. So I followed my passion. I just enjoy seeing, I'm just saying, why is this happening? This is just very strange. But, and so I went from a super advocate of accreditation now to someone that's very cautious and guarded about accreditation in terms of I saw the potential damage that had come about. So, so my case is that if I had to do it all over again, I'd probably do what I had done, focus on and trying to identify where my concern and areas of research might be. As being an academic administrator for a number of years, I've gone through hundreds of applications. And again, for a teaching-related institution, to me, the research part was more important than the grant part. It showed that they had an interest. I saw what their interests were, if it was compatible with what we are teaching at this institution. However, if I want to go on to a research-oriented environment, I would have had a little bit different pattern on that one, because new faculty coming in don't realize that teaching institutions, you're on a 9-month contract, your focus is on teaching. You move into a R1 institution, you're funded for a couple of years, and then the cutover goes to soft money, where you have to get grant money to support some of your offsets. So if you're not attuned to where your future is going to be, and you don't have a passion for something that you're interested in, it no longer becomes an avocation, it becomes a job. And so it does matter in terms of what sort of an institution where you tend to be. I have found that when I do research as something I'm interested in, and particularly if I do it collaboratively, it becomes fun. And then I get engaged in it, I get somebody else excited in it, and strengths of my colleagues tend to come out. Certain people have strengths in certain areas, but I'm a firm believer in synergy, and I take a lot of my ideas, particularly with my graduate classes, and throw them out to the class and play devil's advocate. And I get great responses and great critiques of some of the ideas that I have established. So, so my point is that for academic positions, those moving on and building careers, the research thing is something that's measurable, that's something that tends to be out there. And every once in a while you get lucky and you get a paper that gets cited all over. I started off, before my decision making, I was really interested, still am interested, in technological impact. When is technology successfully diffused and accepted overall? That's when I brought in that cultural dimension. So my whole research agenda kind of spread out, and to me, became quite enlightening. But I included in all my classes, I try to get feedback in there, and I try to see how my students react to it. And if I can get my students to react to my research, then I know I'm onto something, because typically, you know, they'll sit there and not respond in any way, one way or the other. Just to summarize, in terms of you follow your passion and start off with the research, and I have found in multiple cases that the grants come, the opportunities come with the good research or good ideas.
Thank you. So our next question. How can I tell if a grant is worth applying for? Whether I have a chance to win it? At what point in my planning should I call the program officer? Or maybe I shouldn't. What kinds of questions are good to ask the program officer? Dr. Key.
So with this question, we go from the decision of doing research and applying or not applying for grants to past that. We have decided we're going to do research and want to apply for a grant. I would say that the next logical step is to do research on the resources that are available out there for your specific disciplinary or interdisciplinary research. So the usual funders are venture capitals for companies, private foundations, federal agencies, and industrial companies for academic researchers. These are the people, the organizations with the money, understanding what they want to do with the money, which typically is advancing societal, giving solutions to society problems, or for companies making a profit. It's essential for one to be able to assess the chances of funding of their own research. So I would say that one piece of information is this one: what is the environment in which you're going to try to bring resources for your research program? We have dealt with where is our passion, and we know what is general our research. So the question goes on and speaks about contacting these possible investors, specifically program directors, program officers, and I have been a program officer at the National Science Foundation for 2 years. So I would say that first, based on the information that one has collected just by studying the information put out there by the funders, one should write a research plan that, in their opinion, would match those external interests with their strengths, their ability to complete research, and solving those problems that they are interested in. With that one page in hand, one can seek further feedback, specifically from the program directors. In practice, in 2013 and 2014, a program director would receive a phone call from Professor X at Institution Y asking if their research matches the interests of the research program that they are in charge of managing. At that point, I would encourage the person who is calling to send a one-page description of their research, such that I have the time for reflection. I can think about the portfolio of research that I was managing, and I would think about this professor's intended goals. And all those goals are great. In this, I become a partner of the applicant because I want them to have the highest chances too. It will make my research portfolio as the administrator better. Their success in research will get credit to the program I am managing too. So it would be in my best interest to provide that feedback and say, this is a perfect fit. We were looking for these nucleic acid type of structures, and I'm so excited to see this. Provided that you write a 15-page research proposal that gives more details and really can accomplish this. I think, and it is not my final decision, that it would be competitive. So I will ask opinions of reviewers. Because you know that it will not be just the program director, usually, as Fred was acknowledging, success comes from working with a diverse team. Feedback, it's always sought from other people with experience in that research area. You want to master, you want to know very well what is that research area about. With that, your proposal goes out, and I think it has the highest chances to succeed. You fulfill the interests of the funding agencies. You are happy about it. You are in the best position to implement it and reach it. If we want to speak about numbers, what are the chances? I invite you to look within the time you have to study the webpage, for example, for the National Science Foundation. And there is a place up there at the top of the webpage for the NSF that says statistics. And actually, because this is a public, federal agencies, there are rules that make information availability necessary by law, and they also acknowledge that this is good for people who apply, and you can see chances of success. You can see what is the probability, how many people usually apply, what is a typical success rate. I can tell you that in the Division of Chemistry for the last 3 years, the chances of success were in the range of 20%. Grants are relatively smaller, I shouldn't say small, when compared to NIH, where the chances of success are 10%. So it becomes, again, the applicant should look for those and decide how is best to invest their efforts. For those of you in the back, there is an NSF Graduate Research Fellowship Program, which funds students, and one can apply as a senior in undergraduate during the undergraduate studies, and they can apply as a first-year graduate student and also for the first period in their second year in graduate school. Understanding those opportunities would be great. It will make you a better writer and a more critical thinker, if nothing else. If you do not get it, nothing is worse than the position in which you are right now. This is how I think when I expect the answer to one of my applications. If you pull yourself out of the game, chances are zero. If you are in, you can only be better off. So that would be my answer to the question.
It's excellent advice that Catalina's making, and from my vantage point, always get a mentor. You need a mentor to work with to do a preview of your idea, your thoughts overall. I'm very fortunate in a sense that we're, in my department, we're in a hot area. Anything with information systems security, there's a variety of dimensions that you can pursue. A lot of disciplines are not so fortunate. It's far more competitive. There aren't as many opportunities that are out there. So what I would do is, first of all, try to find an area, again, follow your passion that you're very much interested in, and I would find collaborators that are, even if that's not your area directly, that are involved with that area. I have always found it's always to your advantage to take a spin from your discipline and apply it to another area. That adds a unique flavor to it. It's not the specialization that we're used to doing. The other thing that I have found after writing many failed grant applications is that your proposal has to be doable. It has to be understandable. It has to be extremely focused. We tend to be too ambitious, and it tends to be not productive, and not it opens up too many doors for criticism. There's too many potential problems with it. I also think that the more institutions or more partners outside of your realm that are involved in it, you tend to better your chances for a number of reasons. The idea behind a grant is that it's not for you to get credit, something to put on your vita. The idea is that this knowledge gets disseminated to a wider base. And the more partners you get involved with this, the wider the base, the greater the dissemination, the greater the impact of your potential research. There are a lot of needs out there that need to be satisfied, and when we try to write grants, one of the things is to try to focus in and narrow in on that point. And the best way to help you to find out if your idea, your research has merit is to contact somebody that's gone through the process. They're going to be passionate about what they did wrong, what they did right, what the reviewers had said, and that information is invaluable. We had written a cybersecurity grant 2-3 years ago that was not successful, and from that feedback, we refined it, that we were very successful with the help of outside guidance to receive that grant. And so the idea is that if you have some mentor, somebody there that's very brash in terms of isolating what is clear, what is not clear, your chances of success tend to increase. Again, program officers are pretty upfront about statistics. They'll tell you the probability of doing this. They'll give you insights. They cannot give you specifics, but they will give you guidelines. But it's the mentor who's gone through the process that will provide that guidance to move you down the path.
Excellent. Very interesting. Thank you. All right, we have one question left. If we could move through it relatively quickly to get to questions. So talking about dovetailing off what Dr. Kohun was saying, intellectual merit and broader impact and working with others, how can we get others involved in our research, including students and peers?
So here, as in the research proposal, it's a matter of communication such that you can clearly transmit to the people you would like to work with what is that makes you passionate about, And it is also about identifying ways in which this is a win-win situation for both parts. As much as I would like to advance, my personal goals, diversity of the team and the strengths of the team that I work with will make my personal efforts also have a higher impact. So it is critical, I think, for one, just as it is in human relations, in any other part of our existence, to be able to articulate what are their core interests, passion, values, and principles of work. When you find that match in which the team can work well together, it is great. I think that past that stage, making clear expectations, making clear communication about how the work goes, it's very essential. Just festering things that may not work well is not beneficial for anyone, even if sometimes I find it hard to discuss those things. Overcoming this problem we sometimes face of facing problems and discussing with the other members of the team has worked consistently best for the type of work I have done. And then I think it is very important to share the credit. And I think that some people may be more creative than others. Some people may be better at, pipetting, analyzing spectra. And I think that working together makes the best, and taking anything out of the car, even if it seems to be non-essential, will critically impact the way that car runs. As long as we respect and value this type of diversity and communicate it to each other, those are critical things that, to me, lead to having a really good team on which everybody is a success story.
With regards to this question, I would like to separate working with students and peers. I think it's slightly different. So with students, it's really about how you strengthen the mentoring relation that you have. And as Catalina already mentioned, the communication part becomes the fundamental issue. How you create the rapport, how you communicate, articulate your expectations, not just your expectation, also understand students' expectation with regards to the research activities that you work together for several years. I have had some experience, and from my perspective, what I try to do is how I can encourage or emphasize self-motivation and independent thinking in students. I think these two ingredients are very key for any PhD students in particular to finish their PhD studies. So any incentive mechanism I can think of, understanding how they work, and try to work accordingly with them to make sure that they're constantly self-motivated and they're emphasizing independent thinking is, I think, something I try to do. I think giving them opportunity to be first author is also very important. In many cases, sometimes they end up doing 50% of work, and a lot of the ideas come from advisor, but they are still doing the groundwork, and making them first author typically encourages them to keep working harder. And so that's one scheme I typically follow. They are always first authors. I try to prioritize their attendance to conferences and presentations. I think they really get further motivated by the circles that they are exposed to. I have found that in some cases it's good to give a little freedom to the student to find out the problem that they really want to work on. So we can find out the scope of research area that we agree to work on, but give a little freedom so that they can explore, because of the problem actually were identified and articulated by the student. He feels ownership over it, and then he's a little more interested, more engaged in the problem. So I think these are basically some guidelines I follow. There are other aspects like trying to make sure they follow milestones-driven planning of their research activities and so forth, that I think enhances their interest and engagement in research. With regards to peers, I think it's slightly different because they're already established researchers. They have their own strong thinking in certain areas. From my perspective, I think being very familiar with their work, especially with regards to the collaborative project that you are working together on, is very helpful. You can articulate what is it you need from them, especially if you are leading the collaborative activities. It's always good to know the personality and the style of working for different peers you'll be interacting with. I think some people are always busy and they just have to be pursued. Some people are prefer that you write some of the key foundational pieces that they can just update and contribute, build on that without having to think everything from scratch for the part they're supposed to contribute. And some are actually more inclined towards feeling that they are more in control of the components that they are interested in contributing in. So I think understanding the personality and working, interacting with them, again, it comes back to the communication channel, the open discussion characteristic that you establish with individual peers that really help in making sure the collaboration works out very effectively. And most importantly, I think if you can demonstrate that you are the one taking initiative, you are driven by the goals, and you're the one who can achieve the goals by making sure everyone contributes, it really helps build your reputation as a collaborator, and people prefer to work with you because they know, even though they have small parts to contribute to, because you're leading the collaborative team, something will eventually come out in a timely manner. So in many collaborative efforts, sometimes there are a lot of discussion and then there's no one to follow up, and then it just disappears, and people tend to be hesitant to come back for again working with the same set of people. Yeah, I think that's
Providing real life implications is important for impact. I think especially for student research, helping them to see what this means in the real world is important for students. I've read so many top tier journal articles and have walked away from that article and honestly thought, who cares? I mean, and I know we all have had that experience. If it has no relevance in the real world, it's really hard to sell research to students, especially undergraduate students. I think when you read research, you have to have a takeaway that says, boy, this is really interesting. And students need to have that takeaway too when they're reading a stream of literature that contributes to their particular project. They have to be interested in it, or you'll lose them along the way. I'm not saying that relevance should be at the expense of rigor. Rigor and relevance are both equally important in research, but sometimes I think researchers get caught up in the sophisticated methodologies and the sexy statistics, and they lose sight of what's relevant. I teach an advanced research class. Almost all of them are here today, only because this is their class time. I don't know that they would be here in any other regard, but thank you for your support, guys. I appreciate it. They were almost handpicked for that course. It's an elective in the curriculum. I teach the regular marketing research class, and then I teach the advanced class. So after the end of regular marketing research, I went to some of the students that you see in this room, and I said to them, you have real talent. I think you have a curious mind. I think you could do really well in the advanced class. Will you consider it? And thankfully, 14 students did. In this spring semester, we have 7 projects in that class. They work in pairs so that they become collaborators, and they know what being a collaborator means in research. I gave them, I don't know, would you guys say 20 to 25 different project titles at the beginning of the semester, and I said, you pick. So they have to be interested in what they're looking at. So we ended up with 7 different projects that I'm managing and helping them. We're at methodology right now and putting our instruments together and our experimental stimuli. And for the most part, I mean, you could ask them maybe privately afterwards, I think they're interested. They are all engaged in something that they see as valuable, whether it's music and marketing, color and marketing, skinny models versus normal size models in advertising, all different types of projects that they really have personal interest in.
And I think that's a key in getting students involved, is giving them something that they might be interested in. If they wanted to come up with their own topics, they could do that, but I find that in a 15-week semester, students fumble a little bit with that. That problem discovery and that problem definition stage is tough for them. So I think helping them along a little bit and giving them possible topics that seem to be, in my field, hot in marketing, is a way to get that motivation going. But they got to choose, and they're working together with a partner on something that they're really interested in. So, for those professors that don't have a formal class, or a research class, and for those students that don't have a formal research class, my recommendation was students find faculty, faculty find students. If you are a student and you're interested in research, I can guarantee you the majority of your faculty have research projects that they would love for you to help them on. Go to them. And if you want to be a part of that research process and be a published researcher at the end of it, that faculty member will make that happen and help you along in that process. And for faculty members who are interested in doing research, find students in your classes that stand out, who excel, who you really think have the skill set. Miss Kaylin Harmon, sitting in the back of the room, she sat in my marketing research class last semester. She is not a marketing major. She's not even a School of Business student. She's a data analytics major, which I was disappointed to find out. No offense to those of you in that school, but I'm like, oh, Kaylin, like, you need to do marketing research. You need to be in the advanced research class. The course doesn't do much for her in terms of her curriculum, but she's one of those students that has a curious mind, likes research. Identifying those students and coming together and working together with those students is very gratifying, both for the faculty member and for the student. So I think you have to seek it. You have to be proactive about that, whether you're the student or you're the faculty member. It doesn't have to be part of a formalized course. I'm blessed to have one of those courses, blessed to have the 14 of them. But outside of that, it can still work very easily.
Terrific. Thank you to the panel. We have time for a question. Let's take a question from a student, maybe. Your hand selected for your curious minds. You have to have a question.
You can text a question up here. We're professors. We can outweigh you.
Yes, sir. Okay, so the question is experience applying to grad schools. Students who are thinking about that, what should they be doing?
Look at the admission requirements first. Some schools have entrance exams, some programs do not. That's the first thing, and take the entrance exam very seriously. It's not one of those things, well, I'll go take it, see how I do, and then I'll take it again and I'll do better. No, take it very seriously, study for it, and then my advice would be apply to a lot of them. Apply to a lot of different graduate programs, potentially outside of your geographic area. There's been a lot of success stories from students who have gone somewhere else from, not where they're from and certainly not where they did their undergraduate work, and saw the world and participated in graduate studies in a different part of the country. So my advice would be look at the admissions requirements, study for the admissions exams, whatever those are, because they're really taken very seriously at many schools, and then apply to a lot of different ones so that you have a lot of different options.
Well, in addition to that, if you're a little more interested in research, I think it really is important that you look at the research portfolio of the place that you would be choosing. So search the places that have research in areas that you are really interested in, and try to find out how the different faculty members have been active in the particular research areas that you are interested in. It's very important when you're applying for grad school to know what to expect in terms of research environment that you're going to. So I had a lot of experience with regards to that. In fact, I come from Nepal, and coming to US was my goal for grad school, and one of the issue was financial aid. So that was another aspect that I had to really struggle with. So I think if your research, if you are really interested in research aspect, make sure you go through the portfolio of the faculty members and understand the research environment of the institutions.
I think that the accomplishments, the grades during the undergraduate and the admission exams, be it the GRE, the GMAT, or whatever is at the graduate school requires are very important. You can also strengthen the application by having research accomplishments as an undergraduate student commensurate with the expectation for a student. And I would say that you can do that by seeking this type of research opportunities at your institution or in the research experiences for undergraduate programs at others which run in the summer and which usually offer support. I would also say that when you find that drive or that need to pursue graduate school, it's never too late, even if it is in an advanced stage of your undergraduate education. People apply to graduate school even after going and working in industry or in other jobs after they get their undergraduate degree. Once you know what you want to do, there is always a way to do it. And having those requirements of the schools in mind, as Jill has had, you can always create a good research plan, the bare bones of a research proposal, and then start applying it yourself. Every big accomplishment, it's made of small steps taken in the right direction.
Briefly, because we're running out of time.
So I have dealt with this question from my own students, and my own experience has been that I did my undergrad and then worked for 3 years and then came for graduate studies, and I found it very difficult to do the context switch. So particularly I was a teacher teaching undergrad courses, and then I was in the grad school after 3 years. So my advice typically would be, if you really are thinking of doing a grad degree, it's better to probably think of going straight away because the context switch, once you go in the workforce, the lifestyle changes, coming back to do homeworks again would be slightly painful. And especially in the IT field, I think the field is changing very fast. And when you come back after working for 3 to 5 years, what you studied at your undergrad may have already been, there might have already been a significant jump in the content in courses that you would have to tackle with at the grad level. So my advice typically has been that if you're really interested to do a grad degree, it's probably better to think doing it straight away.
Thanks. That's all the time we have. Thank you for the excellent questions. Let's thank our panelists for the great job that they did. I'm gonna turn things over to Dr. Acharya now. We're gonna have an awesome poster session. Certainly, students, make sure to check out the poster session before you leave. And for all the students who are interested in research in grad school, definitely think about applying to the Undergraduate Research Conference. That deadline's coming up March 22nd. You can also present a poster there. Thanks for coming.
Can the panelists please remain seated? The audience, please remain seated for a short while.